I can jump down from here.
The royal family, dressed in elegance and tradition, had come together for Princess Catherine's beloved Christmas carol service, a celebration of family, gratitude, and seasonal warmth. Guests smiled politely, the choir sang sweetly, and the air shimmered with holiday spirit. But beneath the polished charm of this royal gathering, something unexpected stirred a moment so honest, so unfiltered. It pierced through the formality, like a shard of truth. And it came not from a scandalous headline or a seasoned royal, but from the mouth of a child Prince Louis. At just 5 years old, Louis already had a reputation, not for diplomacy, not for tradition, but for the very opposite. He was unpredictable, cheeky, charmingly outspoken. And on that December night, he lived up to that image in a way no one could have prepared for. During the service, Princess Kate introduced a heartwarming gesture, the kindness tree, a simple idea, yet deeply symbolic. Each guest was encouraged to write a note of thanks to someone who had made a difference in their year, a family member, a mentor, a friend. Red cards, tied with golden string, were hung on the branches as tributes of love and appreciation. George and Charlotte clutched their notes carefully, their expressions measured, as cameras gently captured the moment. But it was Louis who turned that tender tradition into a ticking time bomb. With childlike pride, he held his note high for the world to see. Scrawled in messy, innocent handwriting, his message was as sweet as it was sincere. He thanked Grandma Carol and Grandpa Michael for baking cookies, for playing hide-and-seek, for always making him laugh. The crowd chuckled warmly. Even the Queen Consort herself, standing a few feet away, smiled. But then, the silence came. It was a sharp-eyed guest who first noticed, Camilla's name conspicuously missing. A curious voice, meant to lighten the moment, asked Louis why she hadn't been mentioned. And that's when the atmosphere shifted. Louis's face grew serious. His usual grin gave way to something quiet, something resolute. And then, softly, he said the words that froze the room. "She's not telling the truth." No one moved. A festive gathering had turned still. The choir's echo faded into background silence. Kate instinctively reached for her son's shoulder. William's jaw tensed, but Louis, unshaken, continued. "She said she would play with me, but she didn't. She told me to go away." His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply honest. The kind of raw, unfiltered truth that only a child could dare to say aloud, unaware of protocol, unchained by royal expectation. In that moment, something deeper had cracked open. Not a scandal, not an accusation, but a glimpse into the invisible walls that still exist within the House of Windsor. The truth wasn't just in what Louis said, but in how no one denied it. Camilla's smile stayed frozen. Her eyes darted briefly, toward William, then away. The crowd remained hushed, unsure whether to look shocked or pretend nothing had happened. And yet, within that quiet, a storm was already brewing. The innocence of a child had exposed something too fragile to be ignored. What could have possibly led Louis, raised in love, surrounded by family, to make such a remark, in such a moment, with such clarity? Was this just childish confusion, or the echo of something more? What could prompt such a statement from a young prince? To understand, we delve into Prince Louis's world. Behind the centuries-old grandeur of the British monarchy, past the carefully curated appearances and rigid protocols, there's one tiny force that seems determined to break the mold: Prince Louis. At just 5 years old, he's already rewriting the expectations of what a young royal should be. He doesn't do it with speeches or declarations. He does it with a look, a giggle, a spontaneous wave, or a hilariously timed yawn during a national celebration. To the public, he's more than a royal child. He's the palace's delightful little wild card. And it's that unpredictability, wrapped in innocence, that's earned him a place in the hearts of millions. From the moment he made his balcony debut at Buckingham Palace, Louis has captivated audiences not with royal poise, but with pure, unfiltered personality. While others stood solemn, Louis clapped, cheered, and made faces as if he were front row at a circus instead of center stage in a historical event. During Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee, while dignitaries spoke and cameras rolled, Louis stole the entire show by covering his ears and yelling mid-flyover an act that sparked headlines across the globe. It wasn't disrespect. It was childhood, laid bare and untamed in a world that often demands restraint. And somehow, that authenticity made the institution feel more human. But Louis's role as the palace troublemaker is far from chaotic. It's warm, it's intentional. It brings levity to events steeped in tradition. Take, for instance, the now famous Christmas candle moment at Westminster Abbey. As the family gathered for a solemn carol service, Louis leaned forward with perfect timing and blew out Princess Charlotte's candle. What could have been scolded as mischief was instead met with a knowing smile from his sister. It was a glimpse into their bond, one of playful teasing but deep understanding. Charlotte, often seen guiding Louis at public events, has quietly become his anchor. Their connection is obvious. She tempers his energy with patience, and he brings out the laughter she sometimes hides behind royal composure. Then there's George, the elder brother, future king, already under the shadow of responsibility. But even he can't resist Louis's charm. Behind the scenes, they're partners in small crimes, sneaking snacks, plotting pranks, and ganging up to tickle their father. At formal events, George plays the protector, often seen gently nudging Louis to behave or helping him adjust his uniform. Yet in those candid moments away from the public eye, it's clear Louis brings joy to both siblings, reminding them, and everyone watching, that before they are royals, they are children. And that's where Louis's magic lies. He isn't trying to be anything. He simply is. In a world where every move is scrutinized, every gesture dissected, Louis offers something rare: spontaneity. Whether sticking his tongue out at photographers or dancing to a marching band, he does what children do live in the moment. And in doing so, he breaks through the rigid image of monarchy and injects it with something the crown desperately needs: lightness. But this light, as bright as it is, casts long shadows. Because while the world watches Louis laugh, they often overlook the deeper stories unfolding behind those smiles. Yet, beyond the laughter, Louis's relationships within the royal family offer deeper insights. Prince Louis Arthur Charles entered the world not as an ordinary child, but as a royal, heir destined to walk the tightrope between tradition and transformation. Born on a radiant spring morning, April 23, 2018, his arrival was met with national celebration. Bells rang across London. Gun salutes echoed through Hyde Park. Crowds gathered outside St. Mary's Hospital, not just to catch a glimpse, but to welcome a symbol of continuity in a world that was rapidly changing. And yet, for all the pomp and ceremony, what unfolded behind palace doors was a quieter, more deliberate mission. Prince William and Princess Kate weren't just raising a royal. They were determined to raise a son who would know both the weight of legacy and the warmth of love. From the beginning, Louis's journey was wrapped in meaning. His name alone was a tribute to the past, honoring Lord Louis Mountbatten and echoing the strength of his grandfather, King Charles III. But while the christening at the Chapel Royal brimmed with tradition and centuries-old rituals, there was something different in the air. It wasn't just about royal customs, it was about intention. The photos from that day didn't just capture titles, they captured tenderness. George and Charlotte stood proudly beside their baby brother, not as rehearsed heirs, but as protective siblings. And that theme would echo through the coming years. Louis's early milestones unfolded not in the limelight, but in moments carefully chosen. He made his first balcony appearance at Trooping the Color, not with rehearsed grace, but with the uninhibited energy only a toddler could deliver. He waved furiously. He pointed at helicopters. He giggled in the arms of his mother. The public loved it. The monarchy needed it. Louis was already doing something extraordinary, humanizing the crown before he even knew what it meant. Yet, while his mischief charmed the cameras, the real milestones were happening far from flashbulbs. At Wilcox Nursery School, tucked not far from Kensington Palace, Louis began his journey into the world of learning. It wasn't a royal institution. It wasn't selected for prestige. It was chosen for warmth, simplicity, and the promise of a childhood rooted in discovery. For William and Kate, that mattered more than legacy. They understood what Louis needed wasn't constant exposure to grandeur, but small windows of normalcy. Lessons painted with crayons, not protocol, and in 2022, the family made a decision that spoke louder than any press release. They left the city, moved away from palace walls and into Adelaide Cottage in Windsor's home park, a home with history, yes, but more importantly, one with space to breathe. There, the children could run freely on the grass, unbothered by lenses or formalities. It wasn't just a change of address, it was a shift in philosophy. The monarchy, once defined by stoic separation, was slowly evolving through the most unassuming of figures, a barefoot prince chasing butterflies under the quiet watch of his parents. William and Kate weren't just parenting, they were correcting. Correcting the cold detachment William once endured, correcting the fractured childhood that had left him aching for something more. They carved out a life for Louis that balanced the dignity of his birthright with the joy of jumping into muddy puddles. A life where bedtime stories held as much importance as royal engagements. A life where lessons came not just from tutors, but from shared dinners, whispered encouragements, and hands held tightly on long walks through the woods. And at the center of it all, shaping this carefully curated world, stood the people who knew him best, his immediate family. Because central to Louis's upbringing are the influences that surround him every day, molding his heart and sharpening his sense of who and what matters most. For Prince Louis, the youngest of the Wales children, those bonds have taken root. Far from the crown, in the warm embrace of a quieter, less scrutinized corner of his world. While the nation sees him as a royal heir within his family, he is simply Louis' grandson, giggler, explorer. And the grandparents who shape that version of him, more than anyone else, are not royal at all. Carol and Michael Middleton have become an emotional cornerstone in Louis's early life. Their influence may never appear in public ceremonies or historical archives, but behind the palace gates, their impact runs deep. Unlike royal engagements that require structure and silence, time with the Middletons is defined by laughter, messiness, and routine. It's in the clatter of kitchen bowls while baking cookies with Grandma Carol, in the hours spent planting flowers in the garden, or curling up in Buckleberry for bedtime stories told 100 times over. Louis thrives in that setting, not as a prince, but as a little boy who can spill flour on the floor and not worry about headlines. Carol, playful yet firm, has taken on a role far more intimate than the public ever sees. She doesn't just visit, she's involved. She's the one who knows his favorite snack, the songs he hums when he thinks no one's listening, the look he gives right before he bursts into tears or laughter. Michael Middleton, though quieter, brings a calm that steadies Louis's whirlwind energy. Their bond is subtler, less photographed, but no less real. Walks through the countryside, slow conversations about trees and stars. It's in these simple rhythms that Michael teaches Louis the value of silence, of stillness lessons that may one day prove essential for a child born into chaos. The time he spends in Buckleberry doesn't just contrast his royal life, it balances it. Meanwhile, his relationship with King Charles offers a different but meaningful dimension. Charles, a grandfather already tested by time and duty, has opened his world of curiosity to Louis, much like he once did with William and Harry. The two share a love for nature, an appreciation for gardens, and moments that, though fewer, carry emotional weight. Charles, often misunderstood by the public, is surprisingly gentle with his grandchildren. With Louis, there's an effort to connect not through formality, but through storytelling and shared awe at the natural world. And in those pockets of time, something honest emerges. A grandfather not trying to rule, but trying to relate. But amidst these tender relationships, one absence lingers quiet, but undeniable. Queen Camilla. She is rarely seen with Louis, rarely mentioned alongside his milestones. It's a void that has not gone unnoticed by royal watchers. While Camilla has made appearances with her own grandchildren and supported Charles in countless capacities, her presence in Louis's life seems peripheral. Speculation has naturally followed. Is it simply a matter of schedule? Or is there more? Could history's shadow be subtly shaping the present? Whatever the reason, The contrast is striking. Between the joy and comfort Louis finds with the Middletons and the gentle distance with Camilla lies a truth few speak, but many see. And the origins of that truth, the complex roots of royal tension and unresolved emotion, don't begin with Louis. They stretch back decades. To comprehend the nuances of these relationships, we must revisit the past that shaped them. Prince Charles and Princess Diana were not just a couple, they were a symbol. But symbols, once shattered, leave behind sharp edges that cut deeper than most realize. Their union was troubled almost from the start. Diana, luminous and vulnerable, entered the royal machine with hopes of love, only to discover an institution more interested in duty than devotion. Charles, torn between expectation and affection, had never fully let go of the woman he truly loved, Camilla Parker Bowles. What began as whispers soon escalated into headlines. The public watched as Diana's heartbreak became spectacle, her pain dissected in tabloids, her dignity tested by betrayal. In 1992, the separation was official. By 1996, the divorce was final. And in between, a young Prince William stood witness to it all. He saw the tension behind closed doors. He heard the arguments, the silence, the breaking of a marriage that had long lost its way. To the world, it was scandal. To William, it was trauma. A childhood shadowed by cameras, but shaped by pain that no lens could capture. When Diana died in 1997, everything changed. The world mourned, but William's grief was private, profound, and unresolved. He lost not just a mother, but the one person who had shielded him from the cold machinery of royal life. And in the background of that grief stood the very figure. Many still blamed Camilla. Over the years, Charles worked carefully to integrate Camilla into public life. Slowly, deliberately, she transformed from reviled mistress to Duchess of Cornwall, and eventually, Queen Consort. But acceptance didn't come easy. Not from the public, and certainly not from the young man who had watched his mother suffer in silence. William was never outwardly hostile. He played the role. He smiled when necessary. He extended civility. But those close to the family knew the bond was complicated. There was respect, perhaps even a form of peace, but not warmth. Not the kind shared with those who earn your trust, not just your approval. It wasn't just about the past, it was about loyalty, about the memory of a woman who had once walked through landmines to protect her sons, even as her heart was breaking. Over time, William matured into his own role. Husband, father. He vowed to create something different from what he had endured. A home built on truth, laughter, and unconditional love. But even in his pursuit of a new path, the past never disappeared. It lingered. It whispered. It shaped how he introduced people into his children's lives. And while King Charles has forged his bond with Louis through shared curiosity and affection, Camilla has remained distant, not excluded, not estranged, but always on the edge. Because in every royal room Louis enters, there's history in the air. And while he may not understand it yet, he can feel it. Children always do. They sense the tension adults hide, the stories told in glances instead of words. These past events set the stage for understanding the present-day interactions between Louis and Camilla. In a family where every gesture is scrutinized, every glance dissected, and every embrace photographed, it's often what's missing that speaks the loudest. And when it comes to Prince Louis and Queen Camilla, that silence has been deafening. Across countless royal engagements, portraits, and public outings, a pattern has emerged, one that many have noticed, but few dare to question. While Camilla has been seen laughing with her biological grandchildren, smiling gently with George, and engaging warmly with royal aides' children, her interactions with Prince Louis remain curiously minimal. No handheld, no inside jokes caught on camera. No captured moments of shared affection. It's a distance so subtle, it could almost be dismissed, if it weren't so consistent. This contrast hasn't gone unnoticed. Within palace circles, whispers have long stirred about the unspoken boundaries between Camilla and William's children. Boundaries not made of malice, but of memory. With her own family, Camilla is relaxed, playful, present. But with Louis, there's hesitation. And with that hesitation comes speculation. Some say it's simply generational, a woman in her 70s, struggling to relate to a young, energetic boy with no concept of her complicated past. Others believe it runs deeper, that the very history which Camilla worked so hard to rise above now lingers in the spaces between her and the boy, who represents the future she was once never meant to be part of. Royal observers have pointed out that while William has grown to accept Camilla publicly, his boundaries remain private. He is protective of his children, fiercely so, and his scars from the past have shaped that protectiveness. After witnessing the emotional fallout of his parents' broken marriage, after losing his mother in the most brutal and public way imaginable, William vowed to give his own children something different, something safer. He shields them not just from paparazzi, but from pain. And perhaps, in that mission, there are limits to who he allows into their inner world. Limits that Camilla, however politely, does not cross. Insiders close to the family describe Camilla's relationship with William as respectful but reserved. With Kate, it's reportedly cordial. But when it comes to the children, especially Louis, the connection simply isn't there. Not overtly, not intimately. And that absence has consequences. Because in a family as fragile as the Windsors, unity isn't just about appearance. It's about presence. It's about effort. And every time Camilla is seen stepping back when Louis runs forward, the message becomes clearer. Some divides, though invisible, are still very much intact. Yet it would be wrong to paint the picture entirely in shadows, because relationships, especially in royal households, are never static. They evolve, they bend, and sometimes, just when the distance feels permanent, something unexpected happens, something tender, unscripted, real. However, amidst the distance, there have been moments that hint at potential warmth. Prince Louis and Queen Camilla, those moments, though few, have stirred something powerful in the public imagination. On a chilly Christmas morning at Sandringham, one such moment unfolded. As the royal family made their way toward church, wrapped in layers of formality and tradition, Camilla was seen gently placing her hand on Louis's back, guiding him along the path. It lasted only seconds, but it was enough. Enough to ignite headlines. Enough to make people wonder if the distance they'd observed between them was beginning to shift. Louis, full of energy and innocence, turned to her with a curious look, and for the first time it seemed there was connection. It didn't stop there. During a charity event on the Isle of Man, Camilla, amused by a pair of twin boys dressed in matching coats, laughed and made a passing comment about Louis, describing him as lively, full of beans, and impossible not to adore. The audience chuckled. But beyond the humor, there was something else: pride. That brief acknowledgement, unscripted and sincere, revealed a woman who had been watching from afar, perhaps with more affection than the world assumed. And then there was the summer garden party at Clarence's house, where Louis, bounding through a crowd of adults, stopped suddenly at Camilla's side. She knelt, whispered something in his ear, and whatever she said made him burst into laughter, a pure, uncontrollable laugh that echoed across the lawn and caught even William off guard. These moments, though scattered, have painted a more complex picture, one that suggests the relationship between Camilla and Louis is not defined solely by silence. The public response to these rare displays of warmth has been telling. Social media exploded with praise for Camilla's gentler side. Commentators debated whether this signaled a thaw in the icy perception long associated with her role in William's past. Many were quick to call it progress, while others urged caution, reminding us that public gestures are not always reflections of private truths. Still, there's no denying the power of those images. In a royal family where appearances often shape reality, a single shared laugh can become a symbol of possibility. Perhaps these are more than polite exchanges. Perhaps they're early steps in a long-overdue reconciliation, quiet attempts at building trust between generations that once seemed permanently divided. For a young boy like Louis, these moments are fleeting, yes, but they're formative too. They shape his understanding of connection, forgiveness, and family beyond conflict. And maybe, just maybe, these glimpses of affection hint at something bigger. Not a perfect relationship, not even a close one, but the beginning of something, fragile and real, grounded not in history, but in humanity. Because even in the world's most visible family, there's room for healing. There's room for change. And for a while, it felt like the walls were coming down. Yet, the Christmas Carol service brought underlying tensions to the forefront. The moment. Prince Louis uttered the words, "She's not telling the truth." A ripple cut through the royal calm, like a blade through velvet. It was small, innocent, unfiltered. But in that brief instant, the mask slipped, the laughter faded, and the room, once filled with carols and cheer, became silent. What followed wasn't just awkward glances or carefully managed smiles. It was a surge of questions, headlines multiplied within hours, news tickers and talk shows latched onto the moment. Did Louis just expose a deeper rift? Was it just childish confusion or something far more revealing? The royal family, as expected, remained silent. No statements, no corrections, no clarifications. But inside palace walls, the echo of those words was impossible to ignore. For Prince William and Princess Catherine, the challenge was double-edged, protecting their son's innocence while shielding their family from a storm that had suddenly reignited decades-old wounds. For Camilla, the queen consort, it was another reminder of how fragile her place in this family still is. One moment of unguarded honesty had peeled back layers of civility, exposing the raw discomfort that continues to simmer just beneath the surface. Across the media landscape, interpretations varied. Some commentators praised Louis's honesty, calling him a symbol of the unfiltered truth the monarchy often lacks. Others questioned whether the young prince had been influenced either by subtle cues or private conversations behind closed doors. But one thing was certain: this wasn't about protocol, this was about perception. And for Camilla, the perception, once slowly mending, was again on unstable ground. She had spent years rebuilding her public image. From mistress to consort to queen, her transformation had been nothing short of strategic. But with one innocent remark, spoken by the youngest face of the next generation, the past had come roaring back. The incident didn't just bruise her public standing, it reignited debates over her relationship with the late Princess Diana, with Prince William, and now with his children. And in that reflection, many began to ask, can you ever truly mend? Something never fully acknowledged? But perhaps the real question isn't about Camilla. Perhaps it's about what Louis unknowingly taught the world. In a monarchy built on restraint, he reminded us of something radical truth. Raw, inconvenient, and unfiltered truth. A child's truth. And in doing so, he held a mirror to a family that has, for generations, perfected the art of emotional containment. His words, though simple, cut deeper than carefully worded interviews or choreographed appearances ever could. Because in the end, the heart of the royal family isn't measured by titles or tradition. It's measured by trust between generations, between memory and progress, between past wounds and future hope. And while Louis may not have understood the weight of his words that night, he may have sparked something the monarchy so often avoids: an opportunity for real conversation. Not about scandal, not about protocol, but about the fractures that still shape this family's legacy. Because behind the gold-trimmed walls and royal processions, they are, like all of us, just people struggling to reconcile love, loss, and the complicated truths that linger between them. And sometimes, it takes the smallest voice in the room to speak the loudest truth of all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.